Well, for a number of years, our school was really struggling with our math computation scores on our annual standardized tests. We were really succeeding in most areas, coming out around the 80th percentile in just about everything, except math computation was in stark contrast. 4 years ago, we were in the 36th percentile in that area. And so we realized we were going to have to do something intentional if we were going to see an improvement. And one of the first things we tried was just allowing a little bit more time for fact practice. So we went from a 45-minute math class to an hour-long math class to allow some extra time. The tests that we were using at the time, though, were just one kind of operation in isolation. So the students might be taking all addition problems on a test, and the next day all subtraction problems. They weren't getting any mixed operation practice at all. And we realized there was actually a need for a different kind of testing practice. So our principal came up with a plan.
And we contacted Jeff Johnson and asked if he'd be willing to kind of put together for us a math computation program school-wide. And so he developed with some weekly practice tests. We took 1 day a week to work on the practice tests. We spent about 3 minutes with a time test, and then the teacher would then talk about, would go over the results, I guess the answers, with the students, and then the students had a chance to chart their progress on a graph, so they could see, you know, their growth from week to week. Jeff also worked on some benchmark tests that we scattered throughout the year at 4 different locations. So we could just kind of, we set some goals for our school for those tests. The students were aware of those goals as well, and parents were aware, and we just kind of plowed our way through the program. It worked wonderfully. I just can't tell you how much we appreciate the skills that our students have developed over the year. This past year, when you're comparing our school with other schools across the nation, with our standardized test scores in the area of math computation, we went from last year at the 50th percentile to this year at the 86th percentile. And so we attribute that huge gain to the Math Comprehension Enhancer that was developed by Jeff Johnson.
I think one of the reasons it's so successful is because the systematic approach that the students take throughout the year. The tests progressively get harder from the beginning of the year to the end, and we didn't actually start testing the students last year till after Christmas, so it was second semester. But we already, just in that amount of time, saw a lot of gains, because on one practice test, the students have to shift gears from multiplying decimals to adding fractions to subtracting, 5-digit numbers, and that kind of practice is what they needed because it matched up with what they needed to do on the standardized test. And but up until that time, they weren't practicing having to shift those mental gears. So I think, the success that the students had is a direct result of practicing in a way that they really needed it. So we're excited.
And we're also excited because we feel like it's not just that our students are performing well on tests, but we feel that they're also developing the skills that are preparing them to be good math students in life. And we've even noticed significant gains in the other areas associated with math on our standardized testing this year as well. So we attribute that again to our kids having a pretty good grasp of math computational skills, which in turns help them in other areas such as problem solving, data interpretation, etc. So
I think the fact that they took ownership of it as well, by having the graphing of their weekly practice tests so they could see their improvement, and being aware of the whole system of the benchmark tests and knowing what our school-wide goals were, and it just turned out to be a very positive experience. The students were excited about their progress and very excited about the improvement.